Good evening. I'm Diane Lewis. I'm the Chief Programming Officer and Executive Vice President of Paley Center for Media. And it is truly my great pleasure to welcome you to tonight's New York premiere, a PaleyImpact discussion on National Geographic's genius, MLK X. All right, I need my glasses. Hold on a second. Yeah. Every February, the Paley Center celebrates Black History Month by spotlighting some of the most influential Black icons. And as soon as we saw this phenomenal new season of Genius, we knew that we wanted to spotlight this educational and moving anthology series. National Geographic's Emmy Award-winning Genius franchise has previously chronicled the lives of Albert Einstein, Pablo Picasso, and Aretha Franklin. For the first time ever, this latest season focuses on not one, but two Black geniuses, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and how their dueling philosophies helped usher America through the civil rights movement. The docudrama series also brings their wives to the forefront and shows them as formidable equals of the movement. After our screening of the premiere episode, Graduation, which also premieres tonight on National Geographic and ABC, and will stream tomorrow on Disney Plus and Hulu, we are so excited to have actors Kelvin Harrison Jr., who plays Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Aaron Pierre, who plays Malcolm X, Weruche Opia, who plays Coretta Scott King, Jayme Lawson, who plays el-Shabazz, and Griffin Matthews, who plays Bayard Rustin, all on stage. As well as showrunners Raphael Jackson Jr. and I love this crowd, and Damione Macedon, yay, that's right, to discuss the series and share behind-the-scenes stories of bringing these legendary visionaries to life. But before we bring them out, just give me a little moment. I want to invite everyone here to check out our riveting exhibition celebrating this series, located on our second floor and called Paley Celebrates National Geographic's Genius, MLK X, Two Minds, One Movement. It features authentic costumes, props, and set decorations from the series, and provides a window for visitors to transport themselves into the heart of the 1960s civil rights movement chronicled in this season. In conjunction with the exhibit, the Paley Center is pleased to hold daily screenings of several noteworthy programs of the renowned Paley Archive, focusing on the life and legacies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, including two separate rare interviews with both men that were broadcast just days apart in June 1963, which I highly recommend seeing. Also, speaking of Dr. King, the Paley Center joins all of you in mourning last week's passing of Dexter Scott King, the third of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King's 4 children. Dexter was the longtime chairman of the King Center and a visionary who helped build upon his father's legacy. Give me another moment. And now you may have also noticed during the reception that Genius isn't the only blockbuster exhibit at Paley right now. Be sure to also visit Beyond the Big Game, our exhibit created in partnership with the National Football League and Pro Football Hall of Fame, which features iconic Super Bowl artifacts, the first ever showcase of memorable Super Bowl commercials in the past 50 years, and the opportunity to take photos with the Lombardi Trophy. Well, yeah. And we'll hope you'll all be back here in the theater next Saturday, February 10th, when Paley will be screening Super Bowl I. This is the first time ever that the most complete version of the broadcast of Super Bowl I will be screened publicly, and we hope you can join us for that historic screening. Then, on Wednesday, February 28th, the Paley Center is pleased to showcase the award-winning short documentary Below Surface, a moving exploration of the healing power found within a YMCA Aquafit class. That event will be followed by a discussion that we think will help inspire a shift in societal attitude towards aging and address how the power of media can be harnessed to ensure a more inclusive society. So if you're not a Paley member, we encourage you to consider joining this special membership community for special events like this one, early access and discounted tickets on important exhibits, as well as other unique benefits. Okay, now on to our program. First, I want to give a special thanks to National Geographic for teaming with us on this amazing exhibit and tonight's event, and for making this a complimentary event for our Paley members. Thank you. And as always, we extend our deepest thanks and gratitude to our presenting sponsor, Citi, who has been sponsoring our Black History Month experiences for several years. We are thrilled to have Monique Towns and her husband, Bernie. Monique is the Director and Head of Arts and Culture Sponsorships and Global Experiential at Citi, in the audience with us tonight. Monique, we are so grateful and so thrilled to continue this important partnership with you, for your friendship and everything you all do at Citi for us. So thank you very much. So, following the screening, we will welcome tonight's moderator, Jericka Duncan, on stage to introduce our panel. She's a CBS, yes, come on. Yeah. She's a CBS News national correspondent and anchors the Sunday edition of the CBS Weekend News. A CBS News correspondent since 2013, Jericka is an Emmy-nominated journalist who has received several awards for her reporting, including 2 National Edward R. Murrow Awards from the Radio, Television, Digital News Association, and honors from the Associated Press and the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, which named her Journalist of the Year in 2012. But now, before we screen the premiere episode of Genius MLKX, I'd like to invite showrunners Raphael Jackson Jr. and Damione Macedon on stage to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Black History Month to you all. We'll be brief here. Just want to say on behalf of our cast, our crew, our fellow executive producers, Nat Geo and Disney, we want to thank the Paley Center for having us. Thank you, and we really appreciate this. This is a very humbling experience to be here with this particular show on this particular day that is airing, so hopefully everybody's DVRing it at home as well. But this was a long process that a lot of people put a lot of hard work into, and we could not be more humbled and blessed to be representing them here and have you guys see it. It means a lot to us for a multitude of reasons, but we just couldn't be more humbled and happy. So thank you all for being here, really appreciate it.
You know, from day one of this project, it's been an immense labor of love. You know, to have the opportunity and the privilege to continue the legacies of Martin, Malcolm, Betty, and Coretta is one that we all share an immense pride and honor. You know, when we started, the one thing that we constantly heard was the belief and the conception that Martin and Malcolm were rivals. And with them being so, you had to either choose if you were Team Martin or Team Malcolm. But we see it differently. And so with that, we're proud to present to you MLKX.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Happy Black History Month. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed what you watched just now, but now you're going to have the pleasure of actually meeting the executive producers along with some of the actors. So without further ado, I want to introduce executive producers and showrunners Damione Macedon, Raphael Jackson Jr., Griffin Matthews, who portrays Bayard Rustin,
Okay, hold on. There was a whole thing. I'm going to sneak around this way because I can't get around the coat. Hi, everyone.
Jayme Lawson, who plays Malcolm's wife, el-Shabazz. Pierre, who portrays Malcolm X. Kelvin Harris Jr., who portrays Martin Luther King Jr. And Weruche Opia, who plays the wife of Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King. All right, this is the part where I get to sit down with the cast and the executive producers and have a conversation. This is the best part. How are you guys doing? Good.
Fantastic.
How's everybody doing on this lovely Thursday evening? So first and foremost, thank you all for your time. I think everybody, just based off the crowd, really enjoyed what they saw. But I want to start it by opening it up, and we'll go down the line here so everyone gets a chance to answer this question. But how did making this film and creating this work of art affect you personally and professionally?
Right out of the gate with the
Yes, that's what we do.
Listen, I, like most people, grew up with that photo of Martin and Malcolm on my wall. It was surrounded by sports pictures, but so to have come a full circle and be in any way connected to this project. I have 2 daughters. They're going to grow up knowing Martin and Malcolm through this series, more so than probably other projects. It's humbling. So I'm daily moved and blessed that I have any portion of a connection to this project.
For me personally, I would say tremendously. During the entire process, it was reinvigorating because it helped to remind me personally the work that still needs to be done and activate myself. So, diving into the stories of Martin, Malcolm, Betty, and Coretta, and, learning, who they are as people, and then having that, show within the impact that they had within the civil rights movement only, inspired me to do my part. So it affected me tremendously.
For me, I play Bayard Rustin. You didn't see him in this episode, but I started the series. I was 40 years old when we started shooting. 41. Was I 41? I think I was 41.
You don't look a day over 25. That's what I said. Period. By the way, looking 41, there's nothing wrong with that.
I love it. I actually love it. But I say that because I was 41 years old when we started shooting, and I realized how much I did not know about Bayard Rustin. I'm Black, gay, I'm a dad of 2. I didn't know anything about him other than a couple little pieces. And so for me, it was a call to arms to really educate myself. And then hopefully when people see the series, obviously Rustin is having a moment with the movie, but that this man who is so much a part of why I can sit here and be as free as I am and in these boots, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it impacted my life in such a profound way.
I think I'm still figuring out how it's all sitting with me. I think each day I try to take it all in a bit more. I say the most overwhelming feeling I think I feel is rewarding. It feels very rewarding to get to share the stage with these people and know that everybody's labor of love, the product of it is something to be proud of. To have the opportunity to embody such a woman as Dr. Betty Shabazz, you don't get opportunities like that too often. And so I'm trying to still take it all in and process and process it all. But I would say rewarding. It all feels very rewarding.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. I think I just feel abundantly grateful. And I feel privileged to have been gifted the opportunity to do my utmost to portray and celebrate and champion el-Hajj, Malik, el-Shabazz, Malcolm X. Yeah.
I feel a lot of joy, you know? I think, you look at a show like this and playing these great people and how much conflict they had to overcome and how much disrespect, and they still managed to really appreciate those moments of joy with their families, even if they were few and far between. And I think as I get older, I'm almost 30.
Yes.
I'm almost a man. I really cherish those moments of joy, like tonight.
They got all the good answers. Gratitude, joy, reward. It's honestly such an honor and privilege to have been able to attempt to step into the shoes of someone as iconic and incredible as Coretta Scott King. And I learned a lot about myself, a lot about her. She encouraged me. There's some things that I learned about her that I have now incorporated into my own life.
Like what?
Patience. I realized that the other day. I was like, this is a woman who, her husband was on the road probably 350 days out of a year. And she was still put together. The children went to school. They were taken care of. They didn't have a steady income. But she knew that she was part of something. The purpose was greater. And she was able to hold on and wait until, you know, things got better, and she just held it together. And I think that takes an incredible amount of patience, which I believe is divine, because I don't think any human has that by themselves. Right. But yeah, so patience is what she really taught me, and I try to incorporate that. So sometimes when I get a bit upset, I think, what would Coretta do? And then I take a breath and I sit properly and I fold my hands and smile.
Nice, great answer. So that actually brings me to the question that I have for the showrunners, executive producers. Why make sure that the women who are beside these great leaders are a centerpiece in their stories?
That's an easy one. The men that we know on the T-shirts and monuments and statues all around the world do not exist without Betty and Coretta. That is, and so we looked at this as an 8-hour film. Our 8 episodes are an 8-hour film. And when we came into this project, one of the utmost things of importance between ourselves, our fellow executive producers, Reggie and Gina Bythewood, was this was about 4 people, not just the 2 guys. And because we had 8 hours, it afforded us an ability to give more of a runway about who Betty and Coretta were as people. Coretta has a quote in her book where she says, "I was always known as the mother of, the wife of," but she was a civil rights icon, independent of Martin. She influenced Martin to be who he became. So as we got into the story and crafting the episodes, it was important that we devote time to them without the men in the room. Like Weruche was saying, they were gone, so they had to have their moment for us, and we really leaned into that. We have an hour specifically devoted to the 2 of them, where the men take a complete back seat, constructed into the story, but they're not in it at all. And we do our origin story like the pilot for Betty and Coretta, and extremely proud to have gotten a chance to do that and want more people to know more about them.
Griffin, could you talk more about the preparation that went into this? And you all can answer this question too, because I think it takes honesty and courage to say, you know what, there's a lot I didn't know. You know, I've interviewed actors before, and sometimes they like, well, you know, I've always known that da-da-da-da-da. And it's like to say that you didn't, and not be fearful of like oh my gosh, you didn't know who so-and-so was. But what was the preparation that went into that outside of maybe watching Rustin and you know, reading, and each of you guys can talk about how you were able to embody these characters once you had a better understanding of who they were and what they meant to the movement?
I'm gonna give a left of center answer for preparation, because actors can always say, I researched and I studied his accent and I hired a coach. Like, we all did that, and that's part of the job. But actually, my side preparation was all spiritual. I got to Atlanta, I did not have much time to prepare for the job. So I went to the crystal shop and got some candles and some little metal balls. Because I literally felt like it was, to step into his shoes, you had to do it spiritually. And I think that what's on the screen for all of these people was like a spiritual journey. I think we sometimes as African Americans, when we get to play icons, we hold them up so high that we don't know how to bring them back down to earth. And I think that can only be done if you're willing to dig into who they were spiritually. And I think that Bayard, he did not get to say everything that he wanted to say in his life. He was just as smart as these two, as these four, right? He was just as, but because he was in that body in that time, he did not get to get all of the flowers. And so I felt like I went down to the shop in Atlanta and set up a little altar in my hotel room. And I just said, if there's anything left that you want to say it through me. And that was like my spiritual practice to get ready.
I'd say, well, I didn't use crystals.
Listen,
But
listen. What did you use?
I got on my knees and I prayed.
Okay. Listen, I did it too.
So for me, and I would love for when Weruche talks about this, because she articulates it so well, but for me, embodying Betty, I knew the task that was at hand, right? These are not easy shoes to fill. These are not lives that I want to necessarily welcome the task of for myself, right? And so I knew that if I'm being called to this moment, right, like he said, there's all the research and preparation that you do. There's the dialect coaching and for me, creating a music playlist to help score throughout each scene, where is she in this moment of her life? And with all of that, knowing the task that's at hand, I knew that if I'm being called to this moment, that I'm being trusted with Betty's life, well, Lord, you better bring me through this. And most importantly, you better bring me out. Because I want to go back home knowing that I've honored her, but not that I've taken all of that on with me.
Is that hard to do?
It's extremely difficult. It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
I think one thing that made it easier was everybody up here.
True.
Because there was space held to help carry each other. Nobody was on an island by themselves, and nobody was treated as that. It wasn't like, okay, give us all you got, thank you, and goodbye, right? These two took very good care of us, and we took very good care of each other, so that way, because we all recognize what is being asked of us. And there was true honor and reverence for that, as opposed to exploitation, exploiting the actors and their emotions. None of that happened in the same way none of them tried to exploit these icons, right? And so there was just general care and space held to show up in that way.
Very challenging to follow that. When I first was connected with in regards to portraying Malcolm, I was terrified. I had a lot of fear. And I think that came from immediately identifying the enormity of the responsibility and the magnitude of embarking on that journey. I questioned whether I had the capacity. I questioned whether I had the stamina, the endurance, the durability, the emotional intelligence, and the life experience. And I had to lean into that. And I tried my best to utilize that in a way that actually propelled me forward as opposed to prohibiting me. And once I got to that point, which was a fight enough in itself, then, as we said here, you read the autobiography, that was dictated to Alex Haley. You read The Sword and the Shield by Peniel E. Joseph. You watch documentaries, you watch footage. Something for me that was really powerful was coming to Harlem and like walking the streets. It's in the concrete. I think, yes, areas evolve, areas develop, areas change, but what stays is the energy of everyone that has walked those streets before, everyone who has led in those streets before. and it's infectious and it's empowering. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to Atlanta now with that fuel and that love, and I'm going to do my best to serve Malcolm X. And by the grace of God, we did that, you know, so.
I think for me, it was, I did a lot of investigating of myself. Because I was like, you know, when I first came into it and I was really terrified, as everyone was, because the man has a national holiday. So I was like, all right, that's a lot. And then I was like, I'm so young. You know what I mean? I'm literally like, I'm under 30. And I had to ask the producers, I was like, okay, I don't really understand why you've asked me to do this.
Do you think that worked to your advantage, though, because of what Martin Luther King Jr. did in his 20s?
Yes.
And he died at 39,
Yes.
so he was still so young.
Yes, yes. And that was the point they made to me. They were like, listen, dude, you're actually the perfect person to do this because of the fact that, like, he was, what, 25, 26 when the Montgomery bus boycott happened, you know? He was in his early 20s, but he became president of the MIA. And that's such an overwhelming task to take on. You know, we saw in the first episode that his name was changed at, what, 5 years old? Yeah. And to be told that you have, there's a distinction about you. There's something different about you. You're chosen. There's a calling upon your life much larger than you can understand. At 5, I just wanted to play with like toys. You know what I mean? And so I started to have to investigate where do we connect? Where do we relate? And it was in this like act of faith. You know, I lived most of my life trying to figure out, you know, what is the end goal? What's gonna happen to me in the end? And really God always tells me, he's like, I'm not telling you, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to walk in faith and just take one foot in front of the other and it will be revealed to you in time. So that was it was an extra journey for me personally. And I think in honoring that, I would be able to honor Dr. King as well.
All right, I promise I'm going to ask you the first question on the next one. Because you're
No,
like,
you
wait
can
a
keep
minute,
going, I
wait a
don't
minute.
mind. Steal everyone's answers a bit of it. It's honestly, it was a journey, a spiritual journey and a journey of faith. And I think all of us can testify that our faith and we've grown personally from these experiences. As Jayme mentioned earlier, I think when I got told that I got the role, immediately I felt fear and excitement at the same time. It's like, you know, can I do this? Who am I? I'm Nigerian, I'm British. What's going on? How's this gonna work? But then immediately I felt, you know, the sense of responsibility, and then went to do some research and started finding out a lot about her that I didn't know. And that kind of propelled me, because I was like, you know, she's the first lady of the civil rights movement. How do I not know about her? And so that was like a fire to me to like encourage me that, okay, now that I've recognized that I don't know, I want to be part of this process to educate other people who don't, and the next generation. But I remember distinctly when I was reading one of her autobiographies, she's got, I think, 2, but the one I focused on is called My Love, My Life, My Legacy. Thank you. And I was reading it, and I was getting overwhelmed, just like, I felt very overwhelmed. And I remember putting the book down and saying, Lord, I want the essence of Coretta, I don't want the burden. Because that burden is too heavy for Weruche to bear. And once I said that, I kept on reading. I'm a woman of faith, she's a woman of faith. She said stuff like every decision she ever took in her life, she prayed about it. And that really resonated with me, because that's how I, walk my life. I pray about everything. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. So that was kind of a thread for me and her. And every time I had a difficulty, I would pray about it. And it just kept moving like that. So I think this was a very spiritual journey for every single one of us. I mean, those are huge. We could never fill those shoes. We can only show our understanding of these great people. But it was an experience. Personally, career-wise, my craft, learning and meeting these incredible people who I will love and cherish for the rest of my life. It's honestly an honor and a privilege that I can't even articulate, and I'm still trying to process it. I'm not gonna cry, I'm too cute.
So So I want to turn to Raphael, give you a chance to speak to just the amount of work that goes into putting something like this together. Because even before you introduce the actors, and we talked about this backstage, you know, the level of detail, putting the story together, deciding, you know, how it will be portrayed, who do you go with in terms of offers to put something like this out in a way that you're proud of. And if you could also speak on just how special this moment is for both of you.
You know, it's a pretty, I've used the word before, an exhaustive process, you know, and because you're tackling 4 icons and there's so much story surrounding each one of them that it invites that you need to really do your homework within learning about who they were from a humanistic standpoint. And so for us, from day one, before we put pen to pad as writers and creators, we had a think tank for a month. And we sat down with scholars and historians who knew Martin and Malcolm personally, knew Betty and Coretta personally, people like Aaron mentioned Dr. Peniel Joseph, who wrote Sword and the Shield. We had Dr. Barbara Reynolds, Jamal Joseph. We were blessed to have Ambassador Shabazz, who is Malcolm's daughter, a part of the team as well. So historians like that, we were able to kind of pick their brain every day, and we were able to find different nuggets of information that we were surprised that we were finding within it. And so once we went through that process, then it then transferred over into, okay, how are we going to craft the story? And so we were blessed to have an incredible writing staff of young writers, experienced writers who we were really kind of able to lean on and structure a story that didn't rely on us living within the historical moments. You know, what we really wanted to do was, we have this phrase that we've used consistently, is that we want to take them off the t-shirts. We want to get to know Martin, Malcolm, Betty, and Coretta as humans first and foremost, and then we can get to the watershed moments, but we want to live within those experiences of who they were as people. And so structurally, once we were able to kind of, again, identify the key points that we learned in the think tank, we applied that to us structurally. And then, you know, it transferred into casting. And, you know, we've worked on shows before, and, you know, typically you go through a process of having to, you know, audition numerous actors and actresses for said role. But for us, we were blessed to where, and I mean it sincerely, we got our 4 choices off the bat, and we knew it. We knew who we wanted to actually target in the beginning. But then when we actually were able to kind of sit down and talk with each person on stage, it was absolutely incredible. It was incredible, the warmth, the desire, the commitment, the just every different word that you can use that each one of them kind of shared within the role, where once we would have a Zoom with, say, Aaron or Kelvin or Weruche or Jayme and even Griffin, Damione and I together, we would say, oh man, we knew we had something just off of our single conversations with each one of them, because they shared the passion, but then they were also open within the fear and the concern. And, you know, as showrunners and EPs, you know, we want to foster an environment to where you feel protected. And that was of utmost importance. And, you know, that protection, it allows people to really, you know, open up. And once you kind of have that openness, you can really dive into the character itself. And so for us, you know, creatively, we're able to kind of map out what we wanted to do, but the most important part was getting the talent. And each one of them were our top choices, and we were blessed that they were open to get along on this journey with us. So, you know, that pretty much was how it went in. You know, we got into writing the episodes and then shooting, and then it was off and running from that point.
About a 2.5-year process, though.
Yeah, 2.5-year process. Yeah.
And you all shot this in Atlanta for about 5 months.
5 months, and
Yeah.
when I tell you, Atlanta was an incredible setting. I think, you know, Aaron used the words, you know, the energy within the concrete properly. You feel that in Atlanta as well. You know, because it's such a setting connected to Martin Luther King, but also you find that it applies for Malcolm, Betty, and Coretta as well. And the people there were just so open and so supportive and just so heartwarming that it made, you know, waking up and going to set at, say, 5 in the morning that much more enjoyable. It wasn't something that was a burden, per se. So, yeah, Atlanta is a place that, you know, God willing, if we can go back there and shoot, we would absolutely want to do.
And
Were
the
you
food
guys
was
able
good.
to actually shoot at Ebenezer Baptist Church, or?
No, we didn't shoot at Ebenezer, but we did shoot at, we shot at a barbershop that Martin used to frequent. In another scene, we shot on his streets that he used to walk. It was, so we were in connection with them. It was funny driving to work every day. You would take Martin Luther King Boulevard exit or Ralph Abernathy Freeway. So like Aaron said, they're in the pavement there, and it was they were the 7th cast member for us.
Okay, so Weruche, I'm going to ask you first. Instead of starting way down here and coming to you.
Okay.
Favorite moment or most memorable moment behind the scenes that it'll stay with you. Now you wish you were the last one to answer it, no? Do you have one?
I have so many.
Okay.
Being on, we used to call it the king set and the X set. The king set was the party set.
100%.
Because the both of us are wild together. I would say the day we pretended to be a tree. I don't know, we were supposed to be working.
No, we were off that day, and we
No,
saw.
we weren't. We were filming.
Oh,
I think they were like, they were setting stuff up.
Is
We had a
there
break.
evidence of this on Instagram?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And then,
we really wanted to see the X set, but we were never really allowed because we were too crazy.
because there was X-Land and Kingsland. That's what I called it anyway. And then we had the bright idea, there were like some plants, and Kelvin was like, let's pretend to be a tree. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then he grabbed this tree, and he was running around, and I was behind him. And we left our set and went onto the X set, and they were working. And we found this hilarious. I mean, everyone we came across found it hilarious. They were laughing, so we were like, everyone's gonna love it when we get over there. And we got there, and we were welcomed with stares, like, we're trying to work. And so we were like, okay, and then we took our plant back and went to work.
But how important are those moments when
Exactly.
you talk about not carrying the burden
Yes.
of such heavy leaders and people in history that we should never forget?
100%. Listen, the levity is important. You
Yeah.
know, I always like to say it is a privilege that we get to play these people and not actually have to live during this time.
Yes.
You know, and so it's important that we acknowledge that and have a little fun, have some laughs, eat some good food, you know, and enjoy Atlanta, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think something that you actually just mentioned is really important. You know, us all knowing the responsibility and, you know, the measure of that, we really held each other in however our tackling of that manifested itself. You know, so for me personally, something that was really special and I'm deeply grateful to all of them for is, for whatever reason, when I embark on any sort of role, I kind of become a recluse.
He was serious.
He was like,
He was serious.
And they loved on me. They loved on me throughout that process, and they would like, I'd be sat in my trailer just with the glasses on, like, waiting for them to tell me I'm ready, you know, and Kel would like come over and he'd like make me laugh. Jayme would be like, I got you some shrimp. You know, it's like, you know, and I appreciate them for that. I felt held, I felt loved, and I felt supported. So this is not pretense. This is a real friendship that will stand the test of time, and I love and appreciate you guys. Really.
He did come and bring me donuts once.
Dunkin'
that?
Donuts or
I
Krispy
did.
Kreme?
It wasn't a Krispy Kreme. It was well, not I don't wanna say
Five
better.
daughters in Atlanta.
but-
5 Daughters Bakery.
Oh,
It was great.
okay.
It was
All right.
great.
I think some of my favorite behind the scenes actually was working with the kids. And they actually kind of started treating me like mom a little bit. I was like, I'm too young. But appreciate you. Working with the babies, I remember there's one scene, the first scene with the giving birth to that little nugget. And just him falling asleep in my arms. And I'm like, oh, this is precious. Then I had one little girl hand me her snotty tissues. I said, well, I guess this is the part I signed up for. And then even, spoiler, not spoiler, but in the last scene, last episode, with dealing with the different assassinations, it was a bit much for one of the little girls. And I just remember seeing her, and I just held her the whole time. Like in between takes, I just held her, and I just wiped her face, and she just looked at me, and things like that. Just building those moments with those young actors like that. Those were special little moments for me.
Nice.
Okay, I'm gonna tell personal stories, so don't get mad. Don't get mad. Well, she asked the question, and everyone's telling all these. Okay, we gotta say what happened behind the scenes. So I showed up to Atlanta later. They were already many episodes, maybe two episodes in. So they'd been there for many weeks, and I knew who they were. Weruche, I had just watched on I May Destroy You. She was everything on that show. Everything. So I was Googling, I'm Googling, I've watched her show. I gagged when I walked on the set. She was in costume. She looks exactly like Coretta.
Yes.
Gagged.
Yes.
Then Kelvin. So I had Googled Kelvin, and I'd seen one of your movies. But I showed up, and I remember we were shooting something, and every time we were shooting, but you go, they do another setup, Kelvin was slamming applesauce. I said, what's happening? What is the applesauce? What's happening with all the apples? In between takes, applesauce. I said, baby, what's going down? I have 2 small children. They're not slamming applesauce. Kelvin slamming applesauce. Can I say this?
Go for it.
Speaking of actor preparation, Kelvin gained 40 pounds to play Martin Luther King.
Yes. Yeah.
40 pounds, and it all went to the booty, but 40 You'll see it in episode 3. You'll see what I'm talking about. Episode 3. It went to all the right places.
Was that part of the reason for the applesauce?
That was why he was slamming applesauce. I was like, what's wrong with this guy?
It was, I was trying to slow down the burgers and milkshakes, and I was like, I'm gonna do something that's sweet but healthy.
Okay. It's got a lot of sugar in it.
It was not. So, and then Aaron, as he said, Aaron was very serious, and I was one of the few actors that got to cross storylines. So I was on mainly the MLK set, and then I went to that X set, baby. This one's a cheetah. Cheetah. He stayed, the accent, he's British, there was never a British accent.
Yeah.
I tried to get him outside the trailer, like, yo, so tell me about London. Just give me about London town. And he was like, never. He would never break. Jayme, I met tonight. We never met.
Yeah. Wow. Criminal.
Our scenes never happened. Yeah. Wow. So back to these two. This is the last of the behind the scenes. So then a week ago, we were in New York City, and they're texting me, Griff, come out to the bar. I come to the bar to meet them. I've not seen them since we wrapped. I did not know who that person was.
Yeah.
He was skinny like me. I literally went, who are you? Did I not?
You did.
I screamed. And then this one became British. I was like, what's happening? I was at the bar screaming, what's happening? I had never heard his British accent, ever, in the months of filming. Never, not at a party, never. You didn't go to any parties, but never. If you had gone to the party, it would have been MLK. It would have been Malcolm X. So anyways, we had a great time. We really did become so close. Also, I'd have to say this too, I love working with Black people. We just have a thing.
Yes.
It's instant. We do a thing. They did it. We just do a thing.
Yes.
It was so joyous. More Black TV. More Black TV.
Yes.
That's the end of mine.
So Damione and Raphael are cracking up down there.
I don't have to follow that, do I?
Damione has a story.
Oh, Damione, you have a behind the scenes story?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Like most people, I like to stay in the background and hide. But my birthday unfortunately landed during filming, and nobody should have known about it. I don't remember. But those two found out when it was, And it was the night we were filming Martin and Coretta's wedding night, which is one of my favorite moments. I can't wait for y'all to see it in episode 2. And they were beautiful in it. But in between takes, the two, like Weruche said, they have fun, cornered me while I was working to sing me happy birthday for 5 minutes. So that everybody on set knew that it was my birthday, and they all came around, and everybody wanted to say happy birthday, and I was very uncomfortable.
It was great. It was great. It was great. Such a good moment.
But it was a good. Raphael can attest this. We, like they said, we not almost purposely, but somewhat purposely. There was a King shooting schedule and an X shooting schedule, and it just worked out that they very rarely ever were working on the same day or in the same location at all times. But as showrunners, we got to go back and forth, and I have a moment with everybody. Some very, very lighthearted, some very serious, where we were there to be like Aaron was saying, that to hold them up, or to not say anything, to be supportive, so that they could take on quite literally the most famous people of our time, in a way that they could become themselves in doing so.
Right.
So the multitude of moments of standing on set with all of them. Aaron, on the day we filmed Malcolm X showing up for Hinton Johnson, who was beaten by the police. And Aaron and I just happened to be standing together, and there's all these extras dressed in the Nation of Islam clothing, and we're filming Harlem, extras everywhere, and it was just a quiet moment, and then he turned to me, and I turned to him, and I'm like, I'm gonna remember this moment forever. So it was all the goofy moments and a lot of serious moments too that will live with me forever, and I'm grateful to have them.
I'll tell you this, if anyone's ever on set, just from the producer standpoint, if you ever get a chance to stay in Video Village, that is one of the funniest, fun atmospheres on set. We have in the front row right now, Francie Calfo, one of our EPs, and she can attest to it, because it's us. She would be there a lot, but you're sitting there with your script supervisor, your director, a bunch of different people, the sound people back there, and it's a whole kind of different ecosystem where there's jokes being cracked in between takes, and you really get the levity within it. But I do want to share one story to where I feel like I don't know if I would say I got Aaron a crack, but there was a moment early on when we were shooting, and for people who don't know, I'm a big sports fan. I love UFC and boxing, and that was something that Aaron and I, really kind of shared together. And so one Saturday night, we were shooting a little bit later, but there was a UFC fight that was happening. And throughout the day, we kept talking to each other. All right, who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win? So on and so forth. And then Aaron was like, okay, are we going to be done in time for me to see the fight, right? I was like, yeah, we're good, man. Don't worry about it. We're going to see the fight, because I'm going to see the fight too. Unfortunately, we started running a little bit longer, and Aaron was pissed. Aaron was pissed. He was on set with his phone watching the fight, but I remembered it was one time I was like, this dude's getting ready to kick my ass. He's getting ready to kick my ass. But it was one slight moment where he got out of the Malcolm X zone, and I saw the Aaron zone, and it was the Aaron fighting zone. And I was like, okay.
I'm glad everybody's safe. Nobody got hurt. If you could, as we start to wrap things up, I think there are some parallels when you look at fighting for the 1964 Civil Rights Act and where we are in this country right now. Could you speak on that, each of you, and what you want people to take away from this?
The biggest thing we want people to take away is that Martin, Malcolm, Betty, and Coretta laughed, they fell in love, they were youthful, and so it only goes to show how important the choices that they made to become these iconic people are, because they were us. The biggest thing that we're proud of about this series and having 8 hours to do it is we get to humanize them in a way that maybe they haven't been seen before. And it only propels their greatness, at least in my opinion, that much higher, that they were fighting for the things that, unfortunately, in some cases, we're still fighting for, But they were doing that while also trying to be husbands and wives and mothers and fathers and friends. And so if they could do all of those iconic things while dealing with the struggles of daily life, we should not have any burden bigger than that today to do for ourselves. We should take that baton. We should take that baton that they handed us and run with it, because if they can do it, we can do it. So.
Yeah.
Well said. I've said this before, but I feel like I want to say it again just to make the point. In the pilot, Malcolm said it very poignantly, where there's breath, there's hope. And, we're all blessed. God blesses us all with breath every day. And with that breath, we should do something with it. And so for us, and I think for everyone on this stage, more than anything, we want people to be inspired and engaged. I said it earlier, this process of being blessed to do the show has reinvigorated me. And I feel like I want to do something more than I did 2.5 years ago. And so again, God blesses me every day to wake up and to breathe another breath of air. I want to do something with it. And so God willing, the audience who watches it feels the same inspiration. And if we all can do that together as one, we can begin to change the world together, I think. So that for me is, those words are very, very poignant, and that we can all take away from this project.
I hope that the takeaway for me, I think our country is in trouble. I think we're in trouble, and we are in the middle of a lot of conflicts, and I don't think Bayard would be about it. And these two talked about the torch being passed. I think that part of what I am taking away personally is that they were not trying to be icons. They were trying to change the world. And so I don't want the audience or myself to feel like we can never reach it.
Right.
It shouldn't be that we can never get there. Okay, maybe you might have to, by the way. Like, I don't think they wanted to live and die. They were like, we got to do something. We can't do nothing. So I just feel like the world, and particularly this country, as we're heading into elections, and I don't know what's what about what. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I don't know what's what about what. But I do know that we can't sit silent. 2020 gave us all of the wings that we needed. If you didn't have wings before 2020, you got your wings. The Me Too movement gave you your wings. You got your wings. So we got our wings. And so now it's us. Now it's us to be history. And I don't think we should ever let this next generation feel like they can't do it, because they can. We can, I can, you can. So I just really encourage everybody to dig in. Don't step out. It's easy. Social media lets you step out. Dig in. They're doing it in front of us. So the places that we don't like, the violence we don't like, we can change. Nonviolence that was Bayard talking about nonviolence. What's that about? So.
Here.
I hope, one thing that I'm taking away and that I hope others will watching this, that we can get rid of this either or nature.
Amen.
This country, this world is very divided, and everybody is feeding off of the division. And I think this show does a wonderful job of correcting even the narrative that has been put out about these two. That you had to pick a side and that they were against each other. They were not against each other. They were just reaching people that the other one couldn't reach, right? And in reaching a different audience does not mean that my movement is in opposition to your movement. Amen. And I hope that there can be a revival of some sort of getting rid of that either or and know that it's a both and. That your movement and my movement can coexist, and in that sense of community, we can really do something. I'm praying for that, honestly. So that's a takeaway for me that I hope lands on people with the show.
I echo what Jayme said. I think, I think there is a narrative that perpetuates that, these two men were diametrically opposed. And as Jayme said, so eloquently, I think the fact of the matter is that they both had the same objectives. They both had the same end goal. They just had two different ideas about which route was most conducive to that end. So yes, I hope we can arrive at a both and place, but also just specifically on Malcolm, I think there is arguably a considerable amount of misinformation in the world about Malcolm, and I don't know who started that, but it's here.
I know.
And something that I want to encourage, something that I hope is taken away from this series is an opportunity to dispel those myths. And we dispel the myth and we understand the truth. And the truth of the matter, in my exploration, in my immersion in his life and his history and his legacy, is that he operated from a place of love and light only. He never operated from a place of encouraging people to consciously, actively seek physical engagement. He was saying, God forbid, should hypothetically someone infringe upon or threaten the livelihood, the well-being, the safety of you, your loved ones, your community, or anyone that looks like you, you have the right, you have the capacity to defend that. That's what that was. And I hope that people gain that insight and it inspires them to seek the truth of the matter as opposed to being led by the myth. I think that's where I learned on it.
If I could ask you briefly, because I think that opening segment where he says you can't legislate goodwill, and how that speaks to, again, some of the parallels we're seeing now. Even though you see these two men working really hard to pass this legislation that was so important to eliminating, or in theory, discrimination, but you can't change hearts. And that's kind of also where we're at, I feel like, in this country, where I can't make you understand that my life is valuable too. I deserve to be educated. I deserve to know and learn about my history.
I think I couldn't articulate it any more eloquently than you, and I think that is something we need to champion, that's something we need to celebrate, and we need to communicate, we need to talk and empathize, and I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I really appreciate and I hope people take away is the community. Both of these men were supported by equally, if not more, intelligent women. And also we had Bayard Rustin, we had Ella Baker, we had Ralph Abernathy. There's so many incredible leaders during this time that held these men together. And so I think that we need to get behind the people that want to step into the forefront, If somebody wants to be courageous and bold enough to say something and act on it and be active in this country, we really have to champion them.
Wow. I completely agree with what everyone said. The importance of community, I think, is a big thing. And now we have technology. So community is no longer just in your physical space. We have social media, which can be used for bad and can be used for good. And I think that we now have our voices. I think we need to use our voices constantly. We now have a global village. And I think that, a community at large, if we continue to work together, because we still have the same issues of social justice everywhere in the world. And so I think the thought and the importance of community, and I think if we keep fighting, keep talking, keep working against division, hopefully we will have a better world altogether.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us, enlightening us, making us think.